this youth, this great-looking young people, okay? I just said, you know, I'm going to talk for a couple of minutes about success. Should I do that? I mean, should I do that? Or do you want to hear about this boring politics, right? Should I talk about a little bit? I'm given so much money to talk about success, and I give it to charities. But I love talking about success. Frankly, I like talking about success much more than politics, right? But there are a few things when you're talking about being successful. And I say it, and I say it, and it's never going to change. You have to love what you do. You're all young. Ideally, you'll love something that's a good business. For instance, some businesses aren't good business. I won't name them, but they're tough businesses. Other businesses historically have been good businesses. You have to absolutely love what you do. Ideally, love what you do in a good business, but you know what? If it's not necessarily that good, the loving is more important than having that good business. Some people want to be teachers. I mean, some of the happiest people and the most successful people that I know are people that aren't the richest at all. They don't make it all the most money. They're teachers. They're scientists. I know people that are scientists that are like, they can't wait to get to work. They can't wait. Policemen, you know, our police departments are, I think, terribly disrespected. I think they're not given the credit for the great job they do. I have to be honest with you. So true. And our vets and our people, our military. But I will tell you that the happy people are the people, number one, the people with great families, people that have great relationships with their wives or husband, very, very important toward success. Because I don't consider success necessarily monetary, because I know the most successful people in the world, and many of these people are really miserable people, okay? No matter what, and perhaps I'm in that category, okay? But I'm pretty happy. At least I'm very content, I can tell you. But some of the most successful people in the world, I know like many of them. I don't know all, I guess, but I seem to know all. And they cross my path a lot. And they're not necessarily happy people. They're very wealthy people, but they're, in many cases, extremely unhappy. Now, with all of that, I don't want to talk you out of things, because we're talking about success. Most people think success is measured in the form of monetary success. It's not really. I mean, to me, a successful person who has a great family, who loves the family, loves the children, and the children love him or her, to me, that's a much more successful person than a person that's made $1 billion or $10 billion and is miserable and doesn't have a good family and nobody likes the person. And, you know, I've seen them. I think I've seen every type of person there is that God created, if you want to know the truth. And the people are the happiest are not necessarily the people that are the wealthiest, okay? But in terms of monetary success, it does make life easier. You don't have to worry about food and housing and education and sickness. Your doctors, you go to the best doctors, and hopefully that solves the problems. But it does make life easier. And I tell so many stories about different types of people. For instance, you got to love what you do. You got to never, ever quit or give up. Never quit. You're going to be so close. My father used to tell a story. He thought it was funny, but I actually thought it was more of a lesson. He viewed it as funny. And it was about a man who loved the cola business. He loved, you know, soft drinks. That's what he loved. He just loved the business. Isn't it strange how people like different businesses? Look at all these geniuses, the heads of your college. And I think you like this better than politics, too. Don't we like this better? This politics, oh. So what happens is he loved the cola business. And he founded a company. It was called 3UP. And my father would tell this story. He'd laugh, but I'd listen, and I'd say, I don't want to laugh. It's a lesson. And he found his company, 3UP. And he was very proud, but the company wasn't making it, didn't work, and he gave up, and it was just no good, and it went out of business. But he never wanted to quit. And he did another one. It was 4UP. And he did 5UP. And he did 6UP, and they would all fail. And he just kept failing, and finally he gave up. And my father would say, if he only came up, if he just worked a little bit harder, just one more, he would have had 7UP, and he would have been a tremendous success. And I laugh because I think of my father telling me that story. And we viewed it differently. And what I viewed it is not as comedy. I viewed it as never, ever give up. You know, just never give up. You can't. I view another word that you never hear when you're talking about success, and that's momentum. Some people, and you have to know about yourself. You have to know about momentum. Some people have a great momentum. It's even like me on the campaign trail. I took off 3 or 4 days, which is a lot because I've been going for months without any. A lot of people say, unlike Jeb, you have very high energy, right? It's true. But, you take 3 or 4 days off, and that first day or two back, it's like, you got to get going. You got to get going. It's almost like don't take any time off. Vacation. If you want vacations, you're not really in the right business. I hardly ever take time off because I love what I'm doing, whether it's my business or whether it's now this. We're going to make America great again. And whether it's this, no matter what. But the word momentum is a very important word, and you have to understand it, and you have to understand how to think about momentum. And it's a word you never hear when you hear about success, but it's so important. And what happens is there was a man named William Levitt, and I had great respect for him. He was a great real estate person, and he was a young man, and he built Levittowns. Has anyone ever heard of Levittowns? Well, Levittowns were these massive housing developments, largely in Long Island, Pennsylvania, different places, but massive. He was really the first of the massive builders of homes. And he was a young man. He did unbelievably, became very, very rich, and everything he touched turned to gold, and it was incredible. And then what happened is he was offered a lot of money by Gulf and Western. It was a big conglomerate to buy his company. And you have to understand, William Levitt used to go around looking for nails, looking for sawdust. He'd sell the sawdust. He'd save the nails and use them again. He'd save chips of wood and use them for different things. Everything was perfect. He knew how to get zoning. He'd have lunch with the mayor. He'd have lunch with the council. He'd have dinner with everybody. He was the ultimate professional real estate developer, and he built Levittowns. Remember, he was the first really large-scale housing sprawl all over the country. Actually, they went all over the world. So Gulf and Western came to him, and they offered him a lot of money, more money than he ever thought possible. And he took it, and he said, oh, boy, this is great. He then retired at a very young age, very, very young. But he was going crazy. He was so bored. He was going absolutely crazy, but they had a restrictive covenant. He couldn't compete. He couldn't do what he knew best, which was building housing. And so he was retired. He moved to the south of France. He bought a magnificent yacht. Unfortunately, he got divorced, and he did a trophy wife thing, and, one of those things. And terrible person to do that. But he did it. But he had a wife who was a good wife, La Belle. And he named the boat after her, the yacht. And he was riding high. Everything was good. Now he's getting a little older. He's still in retirement, lost his momentum, remember the word. And Gulf and Western comes back, and they're dying. This is a big company, but they're dying because they don't send people to pick up nails. They don't send people to sell the sawdust. They don't send people to take the little scraps of lumber and bring them down and sell them and get very small amounts of money, but it all adds up. And they're losing their shirt with this company they bought. They couldn't get zoning because they don't take the mayor out to dinner, and they don't do the things that you have to do. And they couldn't get zoning. They had all this land. They went crazy with buying land, and they couldn't sell the company because it was a mess, and they destroyed the company. And they went to William Levitt, and they said, we'd love to sell you the company back. And he said, I think it was about 12 years. He was out, okay, lost that whatever it is. And after 12 years, they came to him, they said, we'd love to sell you the company back. Would you have any interest? Yes, I would. I'd love to buy it back. So he bought this big company back, bigger than what he sold. He had all this land that was unzoned and all. And he worked like crazy. He worked 24 hours a day. Work. And he went bankrupt, out of business, totally bankrupt. The biggest, he went bankrupt. And by this time, he was an old guy. And I was at a party, and I was the new hot guy in New York. I was doing great with real estate, and I was on the covers of Business Week magazine and Fortune magazine. I was doing really well. And there was a man named Steve Ross that a lot of you folks would know from Warner Communications. And he was the hot guy in entertainment. He built Time Warner, and he was a great guy. Passed away from cancer, unfortunately, but he was an amazing guy, one of the great people in the history of the entertainment business. And he was giving a cocktail party. He had 50 people on his Fifth Avenue apartment. And I walk into the apartment. I was invited. And I see 50 people. and most of them are in the entertainment business. And I saw one person, pretty old guy, and he was sitting in the corner, and his name was William Levitt. And I went over to him because I was attracted to him because he was in my business. I didn't care about the entertainment people. I cared about him. And I said, Mr. Levitt, how are you doing? Donald Trump. He said, yes, I know. He said, I'm not doing well. I'm not doing well at all. I said, I read that, and it's too bad. What went wrong? And I'll never forget the expression of the statement. He said, Donald, I totally lost my momentum. So the thing you probably never heard. He lost his momentum. He took that time off, he came back, and it was a different world, and he lost his momentum. Now, the real lesson there is you have to know if you've lost your momentum so that you don't get hurt. And it's just something that I talk about because it's so different. And I watched him sitting in this corner. I don't even know why he was there, because he was no longer successful. But I guess Steve knew him and respected him for what he had accomplished, because what he had accomplished was amazing. He was the forerunner to so many massive developments that you see all over. But he said, I lost my momentum, Donald. I lost my momentum. I've never, ever forgotten those words. And I've always remembered them. And what you want to do is you want to keep going, keep going, keep going. But if you think you lost your momentum, slow down and refocus on maybe something else, because it's so important to keep the momentum going, okay? So important. So that's one of the many, many elements or stories. And one quick one that we will make America great again.